The seagulls follow trawler. It's because they think sardines will be thrown into the sea. Thank you very much.
Talking nonsense. So I thought, no, enough's enough. Why should I put up with that? Talking nonsense. So I thought, no, enough's enough. Why should I put up with that? Don't back down, double down. Don't back down, double down.
Yes, here we go. Monday club time. Is it that time already? It has been a lot of shows on the Boyce'S bus this past week. It's been a very, very busy bus this weekend. So a big thank you to everyone for that. But then we're back with the staple show, the original Monday night show. And it is the Boyce'S bus, as always, joined by the other boys. Jonathan, what's happening, son?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. All the better after watching a scintillating performance on Saturday by the Hoops. I thought that was a little bit more like it, Russell. Hopefully a sign of things to come with big games coming up this weekend with the small matter of the League Cup against Motherwell on Wednesday night at Fir Park, and then perhaps the trickiest away fixture of the lot after Ibrox when we go to Tynecastle on Saturday night.
Maybe
so a
trickier.
lot to look forward to. You could argue it's trickier.
A lot to look forward to indeed, Jonathan. We've got a lot to cover on tonight's show. We are going to be talking briefly about your experience at Celtic Park at the weekend and how scintillating that performance was, Jonathan, but we don't want to cover old ground overlay too much. We will look ahead to the Wednesday's fixture against Motherwell and the odd timing of that, as well as what rotational decisions does Ange make, if any, with a view to that potentially trickiest away fixture of the league campaign at the weekend at Tynecastle on Saturday. We're also going to talk about a couple of the wee snippets, Jonathan, that we've been able to see from the Celtic review DVD, season review DVD, one of those things. Is it time, Jonathan? Celtic take the plunge and find themselves on an Amazon Prime with an all or nothing series? Is that what Celtic are warming you up for? Who knows, but it'd certainly be... it's something we'll talk about. It's something we'll talk about, Jonathan. And then, of course, as I sit here 1-0 up, Sutton Death, Phil McGinley will be joining us for the last 10-15 minutes of the show. Thank you to everyone who's watching. I know this is probably the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th Celtic show now that you'll have seen this evening. I do appreciate anyone who can still take more. We won't be changing our time slot anytime soon, Jonathan, though. 9 p.m. Monday is the staple Boyce'S Bus show. And incredibly, Jonathan, in just around 6-7 weeks, we'll be celebrating 1 year of the Boyce'S Bus. The first show was aired on the 6th of December last year in a midst of controversy, hype, and a lot of good banter at the time, and I still love all that nonsense. Someone was calling him the wee fella the other day on Twitter, and it just made me laugh how names stick. Also, on top of that, though, Jonathan, it means we've got 6 or 7 weeks to get that subscriber number up to, and wait for this, we're 98 short, Jonathan, of 3,000 subscribers.
Wow.
3,000 subscribers. Could we do it in year one? So we've got 6 or 7 weeks, guys. If you've not hit that subscribe button, do your Uncle Boyce a favour. Help a boy out, because it doesn't make a great deal of difference to anything. I just think the number will look great. Do you know what I mean? Someone just became one there now. Hey!
There we go. It worked.
But yeah, I mean, hit that subscribe button. If you want to get notifications, hit the wee bell button. Of course, please like the videos. If you're going to be in the comments, you may as well just take 10 seconds or a tenth of a second to click the wee thumbs up. That helps the algorithm, apparently, and gets more traction on the old YouTube. And then, obviously, get involved in the comments by all means. We also still, Jonathan, are sitting on 40 Boyce Bus members. It is an optional and a completely optional $1.99 monthly fee, like you would if it was a Patreon. It's just you basically doffing the cap and saying, you know, you do 20 shows a month, Boyce. There's $1.99. Thank you very much for that, and hope that helps towards the subscriptions. It's all it is. If you don't want to do it, don't worry. The content is all free. Right, Jonathan, all that good stuff out the way, Phil McGinley.
Yes.
Let's have a wee chat briefly about your Saturday afternoon, because you didn't know you were going to the game until late notice.
No, I didn't. I woke up. I'd been out in Edinburgh on Friday night on a work sort of night out, and then I woke up on Saturday morning to find out that somebody I know had a spare season ticket for the game. I was actually in McGinley country. I was in the Jockstein lower stand with all that good stuff. Phil McGinley and his dad couldn't have been sitting that far away from me. So I know I'd forgotten he sat in that stand, to be honest. I'd forgotten which one he was in until I was listening to it back over the weekend. And he was talking about being in the Jockstein lower stand, I think, on the Sunday session. He was in 137. I think I might have actually been in the same section. Yes, I think I might have been in the same section. So we must have been very, very close together.
I heard he'd brought some old King Tut's tickets and that to show you, Jonathan, because, you know, obviously...
Yes, but unexpected bonus. So I was at the game on Saturday, and it was a little bit more like what we've came to expect from the start of the season. That was a bit more like the Celtic of old. They were kind of throwing it back a couple of months on Saturday. Everything they seemed to be hitting was going in that first half in particular. I think it was first couple of shots on target we had with bang, getting ourselves 2-0 up, and you kind of know at that point it's going to be a long day for Hibernian. You know, so many good performers. You could go through the whole team. I didn't think anyone really put a foot wrong. I thought Aaron Moy, who I've been critical on here before, had his best game in a Celtic shirt by far. So credit to him where it's due, playing a bit further forward. I thought that was quite an interesting position to have put him into. That was one of my more interesting takeaways from the game. We found out, obviously, that James Forrest isn't quite done yet. I know you've got those dongs, Russell, for The Undertaker at the start of your rolling credits. James Forrest is almost like The Undertaker when it comes to the footballing side of it, because I've never heard of a guy being written off and being finished as many times as James Forrest. But he keeps coming back. And he
keeps adding to the streak.
He keeps adding to the streak as well. He is very much like the Undertaker of Celtic Football Club, because that must be about 12, 13 seasons in a row now. I think he scored in the league, which is quite incredible, really. And, you know, he was actually rolled back the years a bit on Saturday. I didn't think he still had those types of performances left in him. I think I'd written him off for about the 150th time in his career at Celtic, and he made me look a bit silly. Not for the first time he's done that over his career. Yeah, it does happen. So I was pretty impressed with him. I thought Burnaby was really good at left back. I think Giacomakis, again, there seems to be a bit of niggles with him. I think there still seems to be a wee bit of injury concerns, to be truthful. I think when he scores a second goal, he actually scores it with one leg. That's how good he is, because he's pretty much hobbling about right before he takes it. And then comes off almost immediately afterwards. But you can see him hobbling about even before he gets the chance. When you're in the ground, you could watch. He was very uncomfortable. So that could be interesting to see if he's going to still be fully fit for Wednesday on top of that. And then, you know, lastly, on a bit more of a sour note, I thought the referee was an absolute disgrace. But I know that's been touched upon. I thought, to be honest with you, that Stephen McLean literally just pulled the same sort of cards that Bobby Madden was producing in the Scottish Cup semi-final from last season, where he wasn't making as many big decisions wrong, but any sort of niggly foul, any chance he had to try and break up the play was dictating how that game was run, which unfortunately, and I know we're going to have a discussion about VAR, won't actually affect anything when VAR comes in, because things like that can still happen if a referee decides they're going to dictate the game and pull everything back and then be completely inconsistent with their bookings, which I felt he was. And, he was booed off at halftime and he was booed off at full time, which says it all, really. When you win a game 6-1 and everyone that's still left in the stadium at full time is pretty much booing the referee off the park rather than applauding the team for their efforts. So there was a lot to take away from it. But for me, you've got to look at it and think it was a brilliant performance, wasn't it?
It was, Jonathan. It was. I mean, it's one of those performances that Celtic were really needing, and that's kind of what been my sort of narrative over the weekend. I've probably done about 40 shows since the game now, but I did feel that it was a performance that was more like it. I would describe it as, Jonathan. It was more like it, and that's not because we take 6-1 victories for granted, but I also do believe there's a strong argument, Jonathan, to also say when many fans, and it's, of course it's their right to feel any way that they do about the Champions League exploits. But when you get showered and littered with excuses, Jonathan, of can't compete at that level, money, yada, 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 then flip it and put that onto the Hibs team. Look at their wedge build, look at ours, and percentage games is, very similar, I would imagine, at the Champions League, if not more in Celtic's favour domestically than what it is the other teams in the Champions League. So, with that in mind, Jonathan, 6-1 at home, I think we should be expecting it sometimes. If we can't expect to get a win in the Champions League, then these sort of wins. But nonetheless, I'm being facetious, Jonathan. Deep down, I was delighted with the performance. I thought it was very much more like it. I thought it showed character to come back as well, to be completely honest with you, from the blip, the dip, whatever you want to call it, in form that we've had. This is out it. As far as I'm concerned, they've washed their hands with it. It's done. We crack on. And albeit, there might be people like me who are underwhelmed by the fact that when I say we crack on, that's going to be in the domestic, sort of universe, Jonathan, and not with the subplot of a European campaign ahead. I can't help but be disappointed in that. That's just because that's where I see Celtic's future. I think in time as well, if I'm being completely honest with you, it won't be the Champions League. It will be some form of European Super League, Jonathan. I think if you're not dining out in the Champions League right now at this moment in time, when the clubs have already got together at some point to sort of say, this is where we see football going, and there's more American ownership than ever, and they'll be looking at rebranding. I think when all these clubs are in cahoots once, they'll be in cahoots again. This hasn't gone away completely. You've got to be at that top table dining, Jonathan, year on year and competing at it if you're going to be involved in those sort of conversations. Reputation alone, I don't think so. Club history, I don't think so. But naturally, football will, in the next 10, 20 years, completely change, I think, dramatically. And that may well still be with domestic leagues and all that, but there will be a different form of Champions League, Jonathan. I want us to be involved in that. Hence why we need to always be keeping strong eyes on Europe, because as the moving parts of the football universe, I've said universe twice already, but as the power hungry, the money grabbing owners and all that seek their own agenda, we kind of need to try to be involved in that as well, or you get completely left behind. And the only way to do that will be competing stronger in Europe. However, it looks like our destiny, and what our final take on this season will be defined by this year, again, will be on our domestic success. We enter into our second round of the League Cup, Jonathan, against Motherwell. Quarterfinals, is it? Isn't it?
Yes. It's quite a quick hit tournament, this one. You don't have to play too many games to get yourselves into a final here at all. So quarterfinals.
Yeah. So I think with that in mind, it'll be very interesting to see what Ange does, Jonathan, with the squad. Now, obviously, we've seen rotation go badly this season. We've also seen it, like we did at the weekend, go extremely well. I stand by it. Aaron Moy had a good game on Saturday, Jonathan. It's words people don't think I would utter. However, when I give an opinion on something, I give it as honestly as I can. I mean what I say and I say what I mean, Jonathan. And that never at any point, when you're talking about something like sport, which is a highly moving, always changing sport, you never dig your heels in an opinion, Jonathan. When I say Aaron Moyes an underwhelming signing, when I watch him against St Mirren, I think he's not going to make it. I'll stand by those opinions at that time. See if he has a good game at home as Hibs and he gets 2 assists, I'll say he had a great game. No two ways about it. You can't be over proud about stuff like that, Jonathan. Go, oh, well, he got the 2 assists, but did he slow us down? That's you then looking to continually just back up your own point about other stuff. Have the courage of your convictions, Jonathan, to say, no, despite other points I've made, which I still stand by, when he plays well, you cannot be a ball bag and not give him the due respect that he deserves. And I thought he did have a very good game, but he wasn't the only one, Jonathan. That's the thing. James Forrest, the Centurion, comes on. His first start of the season, gets a hat-trick. Yep. That'll be the big story. Bernabei at left back looked pretty tasty. And it's brilliant to see his involvement increasing of late as well. Not because Greg Taylor's done anything wrong, but we want that strong competition for every single position. I think Moritz Jens has really begun to settle, Jonathan, in the starting 11. And Tony Ralston, again, because if Juranovic was to play in the next game or two and plays a belter, I'll be the first one to say it. But as things stand, on the 17th of October 2022, Jonathan, my first pick right back is Tony Ralston. Will Celtic go to a stronger 11, do you think? With bearing in mind, the European thing looks a busted flush, to be honest, bar a lot of things going in our favour. And there being a chance of a domestic treble, obviously, depending on how you do in these cups. And trebles are what Celtic's been all about in recent history. Is there a chance that Ange might just go full throttle and play the full strength team? What do you think he's going to be inclined, Jonathan, to continue the mixing it up sort of nature that he did at the weekend and other domestic fixtures so far? And we get a chance to see other guys come into the team, like we have with Bernabei, like we did with Forrest at the weekend, and see what they can bring to the party. Haksabanovic being another.
Haksabanovic, yeah. I think I don't think he'll make too many changes from the team that actually started against Hibs. I think part of the reason we've ended up in that bit of a rut before the Hibs game was down to the fact we were chopping and changing the team a bit too much, and it was just perhaps part of the reasoning things weren't going quite as well for us, as we were just making too many changes and it was just disrupting the rhythm of the football club. And I just think, on the back of the Hibs game, that was a really impressive performance. As you rightly say, there was nobody who played poorly in that game at all. Everyone was either a 7 out of 10 or higher. So I don't expect them to make too many changes to the team that started against Hibs to the one that's going to start against Motherwell. I anticipate that the outfield 11 will probably be very similar, maybe 1 or 2 changes maximum. I would expect Joe Hart will drop out for Seacrest, which I think most of us won't have an issue with there. Outside of that, I think the only other one, possibly Giakoumakis, might drop out, and that's mainly more because of the injury he possibly picked up in the Hibs game. They might just try and wrap him up in a bit of cotton wool, which ideally you'd like to see him start, because I think he needs a run of games, Chaos. I really do. I think it'll just help build him up even more.
Let's Jonathan quickly touch on that though then quickly, because I think you raise a valid point. I think every single person now, nearly to a man in the chat, would say Giakoumakis has earned his run. It's a League Cup quarter-final. There's no reason not to play him. But to flip it, if it is because of another concern about another potential niggle, another injury for the guy who, I think it was Mark Kearney at the weekend, highlighted the fact he's always touching his leg. He's always going down and grabbing that leg. It almost looks like it's either his hamstring or just behind his thigh. I don't know, man. But he seems to be constantly in agony, right? Always hurt, right? And I mean, it really would frustrate you, because I don't think Kyogo's in the game time as such right now, right? I think he's maybe not having the best of form right now, but I don't think he's desperately needing those minutes from a start. Giakoumakis, I think, really is needing that run of starts, Jonathan. If not, from our personal point of view, to further prove he's the top dog up front, Jonathan, which I think he would prove. But on another note, this strengthens the argument that come January, honestly, there is no 2 ways Celtic must sign a third striker. They have to.
Yeah, they'll need to. They'll absolutely need to. But I think we kind of highlighted that a lot in the summer, that we felt another striker needed to come in. And obviously, banged the drum a lot about Jordan Larson. But the fact they didn't get anyone in at all, there was always going to be a tad concern, and particularly when you do look back at last season and the fact both Kyogo and Giakoumakis were out for extended periods of time. We got lucky in the sense that it wasn't at the same time, really, for most of the season. There was very few games where both of them weren't available. But if something like that had happened, and both of them had missed the first half of the season, or both of them missed the second half of the season, that season turns out completely differently from what it does.
And does it give him a way out as well? Does it give him a way out if there is this talk of an injury, Jonathan? Does it give him a way out? Does it give Ange an excuse to pull him out, where he might have actually been doing that anyway?
Yeah, well, I think so. I think he'll definitely claim it's because of an injury. I think if he was to pull him, even if it was just because he wants to put Kyogo back in, he's got that ready-made excuse now there, and fans would probably be understandable towards it because Giakoumakis did look in a bit of discomfort towards the end of the Hibs game before he was subbed off. So I think, it works perfectly for Ange if he wants to end up switching him, and he can just be like, well, he picked up a knock, and that's why I didn't want to risk him from the start. And most people would be like, right, fine, fair enough. There's no point risking him too much when you particularly have got Hearts, at the weekend, and that's probably the priority fixture for a lot of people, I would say, this week. I know you're talking about the treble. I don't think if Europe had went slightly better, I would have been convinced I've said something totally different for Wednesday night. I think he would have totally changed the whole team again, with almost thinking of the Hearts game and then the Shakhtar game the following midweek. But because that Shakhtar game is now looking like it's going to be an uphill battle in terms of getting out of Europe, even if he wins that game, he's still going to need to get something at the Bernabeu. It's looking like the odds are going to be very much stacked against us. Yeah. So it looks like
I call it.
the Bernabeu, yeah. But it's one of those ones where if he's looking at it from a European standpoint, I'm with you. I think Europe's gubbed. I said last week it was all or nothing at the high stakes casino, and Celtic didn't produce the right cards. They weren't able to hit the right numbers when they needed them. I think when you're looking at it now, if you're not going to be making progress in Europe, then all of a sudden the League Cup, for me, takes on more significance than it otherwise would have done. And I think that was proven by the fact that Ange made so many changes in the last round in the League Cup. I think he made about 8 or 9 changes against Ross County. I think he might have done something similar if Celtic were still looking at progressing in Europe and were in a position where, third place was looking a lot more achievable, or second place was looking more achievable. But I think now the priorities might shift once again towards trying to get domestic dominance. And if he's going to do that, I think he'll probably keep most of the players that started against Hibs, as I say, because he'll want to keep the form going. But I think when it comes to Giakoumakis, I think unless he's ruled out by injury, I think he has to start up front from the beginning, because I think he has proven himself. He needs a run of games, and I think he's probably been one of the most unlucky players this season not to have had a run of games, because he does get goals off the bench. He has actually scored, I think, pretty much every game he started probably this season. I don't think there's been many games he started this season where he hasn't scored. So he definitely deserves that run, provided he's fully fit. Outside of that, I think he'll probably keep the rest of the team fairly similar. Possibly shuffle the midfield ever so slightly, but even then, I think it's probably going to be the same three that started in the central positions. Forrest has to play out wide for me after getting a hat trick. You can't just drop him back to the bench. He's probably going to get a run of games. He's probably going to benefit Russell, because I know we always had that talk, and we know Abada's a fantastic player, but he seems a wee bit off the boil at the moment. I know he got an assist off the bench, but it doesn't look like his shooting's quite there. Even in the Hibs game, he probably could have had 1 or 2. When he's in top form, he probably scores a couple there, and he does look like he's a wee bit off the boil in terms of his finishing just now, Abada. And for me, looking at that, I would say this probably presents an opportunity for Forrest to get a run in the team. And I don't know what your thoughts are, but would you be comfortable with Forrest potentially playing, the League Cup, and then again at Tynecastle, bearing in mind, he's only just got his first start of the season on Saturday there.
It's a turnaround, Jonathan. No one could say they envisaged. But this is the point I was making at the beginning of the show. The beauty of football and sport in general, whatever your sport may be. Obviously, us guys on here and guys and girls in the chat, football is our love. It is our passion. And if you've followed football for 12 months, Jonathan, then you'll know in 12 months, within 12 months, how often the goalposts move. And I don't mean on the pitch during the game, but that is the turn of phrase you would use, because it's always evolving. Situations are always cropping out of nowhere that you would never expect. Your opinion, therefore, has to move as well. Very important, people remember that. No one ever should try to be mystic men when it comes to football, because if you do and you claim I read something on Twitter last week, Jonathan, about people who think this about Celtic in the Champions League obviously don't have foresight. I don't know who it was. I can't remember who posted it. I was like, I think it was a blog or a pod or something. Don't have enough foresight. And I'm like, who the fuck are you talking to, mate? Like, and maybe there are other views I would agree with. I don't know. But that foresight thing, I thought, well, you tell me, Jonathan, and James Forrest, as we're talking about right now, the one perfect example. He comes in from the cold. Who's predicting he's scoring a hat-trick? Who's then thinking, do you know what? Hearts, Tynecastle. I'd feel better if James Forrest starts that game. If you'd said that a week ago, 2 weeks ago, Jonathan, you're getting laughed out the door. So this is why football is such a special sport, and it's why emotions can run so high when it comes to particularly a team like Celtic, who seem to have a hold on our soul like other clubs, fans, their club doesn't quite do to them, Jonathan. And I think sometimes it's very, very it's very difficult for people to move on when because you dig deeper in an opinion, Jonathan, on this, and myself included. So see being able to pull yourself out and kind of look, and that's my tough challenge doing these shows. My toughest challenge, Jonathan, is trying to pull my emotional state out of an opinion I've had and looking at it and going, Aaron Moy, for example, you look like a prick, but be honest, he was shit hot. I think when it comes to James Forrest, Jonathan, we're in a surreal situation where I genuinely think he will start the next 2 games, and I think he's earned it. I don't think you can give a guy one start. I thought the Leipzig home game, when he comes on as a sub, he sets up that chance for Giakoumakis. But I loved Kaiser's points last night. I don't know if you've caught up with the Kaiser show. It's one not to be missed.
I'm sure it will be missed. I've not caught up with that one yet, but it is on the watch list over the next couple of days.
It's funny. It was good, but a lot of good insight for Kaiser as well. We will have him back on 100%. And what Kaiser was saying, he goes, James Forrest came on against Leipzig, right? Or Leipzig, whatever you want to call it. Real Leipzig, I was calling him in the Sunday player the other week. But what he did was he reminded players they could play football, Jonathan. He reminded everyone, like, don't think you don't belong here. And he just played his natural game. I'm not saying he came on and had an impact like Lionel Messi, Jonathan, but he came on and he played. And he played very confidently. And he creates that chance for Giakoumakis. But not just that. He came on, Jonathan, and wasn't phased. And I think he showed a level of composure, confidence, and brilliant temperament, Jonathan, to handle it at Champions League level that I think players of more ability up there could not do, Jonathan, over the 4 games. 4 games is no fluke. When you ain't taking your chances over 4 games, Jonathan, there is no point in resting in your laurels and saying, but we created the chances, so we're doing everything right. Well, no, we're not, because it's cost us our place in the competition. If it costs you your place in the competition, whatever that competition may be, then fundamentally something hasn't been right. And you cannot get lackadaisical, Jonathan, based on XGs, because guess what? XG didn't get us out the group, Jonathan. XG did not get us out the group. But the goals we didn't score didn't get us out the group as well. So there you go.
Oh, you cut off?
Am I back?
Yeah, you're back now. Yeah, I could hear what you said there. I had no idea what you were saying.
Just have to think what face I was pulling as it froze there, Jonathan. But yeah, what I'm saying is, with regards to James Forrest, with regards to the fact that I've lost my train of thought now, trying to desperately pull it back, Jonathan. But what he did in the Champions League night, as I say, he showed, Jonathan, I think, a level of temperament, confidence, and composure that other players with more ability perhaps hadn't all showed in the Champions League over the 4 games. Okay, the 4 games without showing enough of that during them cost us our place in that competition. You can't say that's not fatal. You can't rely on XG, Jonathan, at this stage, because that ain't going to get you out the group. So Forrest comes in, does very well against Leipzig, Real Leipzig, whatever you want to call them, and he thinks he warrants a start at the weekend. He comes in, he scores a hat-trick. Now, how do you keep that form going? There's no point in taking him back out the team. He's 31 years old, Jonathan. He made his first start at the weekend. I think he does need to play this midweek, and then you start him again at Tynecastle. But what I started with this point was, it's incredible, Jonathan. Just you think of the competition for winger spots in this Celtic squad. I think we're almost heavy in the amount of options that we've got.
Yep.
James Forrest now being the guy we think. I think it should be if Jota's back fit at the weekend, play him on the left. It's Forrest on the right for me, mate. And I think it'd be wrong to take him out. You've got to play people on their merits and their form as well.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think, if Jota's back fit, then it's going to be Moy who'll drop out. Haksabanovic goes back into the 10, and then you keep Hatate and O'Reilly. That's really two central midfielders with Jota on the left, Forrest on the right. I think it's always a testament to somebody like James Forrest as well. You're looking at his stats. He's up there with some of the greatest players that have ever played for the football club. And you're looking at him and you're thinking it'd be very easy for him to have went on a strop over the fact, he's probably last choice winger at the start of this season.
Would that be seventh choice, Jonathan? Is that seventh? Let's go through them. So I think, if we were to rank the wingers, right? We've got time, right? You would be going Jota number one.
Mm-hmm.
I think, I know now it's changed, but I think going into the season, you'd be saying Abada number two.
Yeah, you'd say Abada number two, yeah.
I think we would have been saying Maeda was number three because his record, remember, in the last 6 months of last season was very strong. So this is at the start of the season, guys, before you get all carried away now. Would Merrill Wyatt, how many times can Boyce say Jonathan? Oh, it's not a competition. I like to address the person I'm speaking with, Merrill. You know what I mean, Merrill? How are you, Merrill? 3 bags full, Merrill. How many times can I say your name, Merrill? I think then you'd be looking at who else is there, Jonathan? Jeez, I'm struggling to even think now.
Haksabanovic.
But we didn't know where he would be, Jonathan, at the start.
We didn't know where he would be, but we kind of knew when we brought him in, he came with a pedigree that he was probably going to be above Forrest in the pecking order. It looked like Forrest was done by all accounts. I think there was a lot of people scratching their heads when he was given the new contract. When they ended up, yeah, exactly. It was when you're thinking, is this going to go down the James McCarthy sort of route where we've just given the boy a contract and he's not going to really do much for us to really repay anything in those 3 years. But he's proven himself once again this season. As I say, it'd been very easy for Forrest to have had his nose out of joint, considering where he was in the pecking order and what he's done for the club over so many years to have taken the huff. But he never does that. He always just knuckles down and gets on with things. And I think it always comes back and it pays dividends. And I think a lot of us thought he's just going to be more of a role model type figure now in the dressing room, and he's probably his playing time is going to be very limited. Whereas he's once again proven that certainly domestically he is more than capable of still causing defences absolute nightmares in the Scottish top flight. And I think when you base off that Hibs performance, where he was cutting in, getting so much joy coming through there, he's also been able to still find the spaces to really.
I don't know where I was getting 7 wingers from, by the way, Jonathan. Sorry to interrupt, but I don't know where I was getting 7 wingers from.
I didn't know if you were trying to include Mikey Johnson or whatever else you were trying to add in there.
Numbers about, mate. No wonder I wasn't getting through that list. Cheers, Phil.
Aaron Moy, whatever else. You were just thinking it. Put everyone out like who cares?
Hopefully tonight's Sutton Death, Jonathan, when Phil comes on, will be on current Celtic wingers. All 7 of them, I'll win.
I'm not sure about that.
Because you'll be running out. You'll be like, he's not a winger. Well, Boyce is a winger. Yeah, Moy, winger. But yeah, the point of the matter doesn't change though, Jonathan. I mean, Forrest is a player that I think has to start the midweek. What about in goals? I'm seeing a couple of comments coming in earlier.
The goalkeeper situation has to be Siegrist, I think.
I think on the balance of fairness, Jonathan, it has to be Siegrist. I agree.
Yeah, I think, and it's interesting because you did say, many times on this podcast that you think Joe Hart will be replaced at some point throughout the season. And I'm wondering if it'll be a case that Joe Hart will be replaced there because he makes a clanger, which, he's had 1 or 2 this season, questionable moments, or whether, Russell, it could be something like a League Cup tie where Siegrist potentially ends up becoming a match winner, at Fir Park if things are tight, and he ends up making a few big saves. Do you think Siegrist in a game like this could actually play himself into contention for the number 1 jersey? Or do you think it's one of these ones similar to what Ange's done, with Giakoumakis, and it doesn't really matter what Siegrist does, Joe Hart goes back in at Tynecastle regardless?
Well, I think for me, there's a couple of things that annoy me with, if you're a cup goalkeeper, brilliant, because it gives you the opportunity, as you're discussing there, Jonathan, for Ange to scope out what the benefits are, the cons, the pros, the cons of what Siegrist brings to the team. And it also gets him, of course, much needed minutes in the tank from a personal point of view. But if this was a case of virtue signalling, Jonathan, and just playing players for the sake of playing them, giving them a run out with absolutely no intention of playing, then just play Joe Hart. Simple as that. If it's virtue signalling bullshit, Jonathan, to say, look, I got the ball to sign as another goalie, so I've got to play him some games, but he's got no chance of getting in, really, then I think that'd be poor. So therefore, Siegrist has got to treat these games as an audition, as a shop window moment, not a shop window to other clubs, but a shop window to the manager, and try and sell himself the best possible way he can. That might not be by trying too hard, though, by the way. I just mean, do your absolute best, take the occasion seriously. Don't think you're being brought in as some part of a B team, if you like. Treat it as you're the number 1 goalkeeper, play with authority, bring all the good aspects to your game that you do, which obviously we know he's a fantastic shot stopper. He proved that numerous times at Dundee United against us too. I think people forget. But with the ball at his feet, there's undeniably like an open window there, Jonathan, to kind of highlight you're good at that, I would say, right now, and give the manager a contrast and compare scenario, which anyone with the weight and salt, you would be doing that with the salt. You'd be looking at the two. If he starts knocking the ball about with confidence from the back and just a wee bit better than Joe Hart, a couple of examples even at the weekend there, Jonathan, where it's not quite worked.
Yeah.
I mean, that would be something I would be looking to exploit. I'm not asking him to do keepy uppies of that, mate. Do you know what I mean? Just like, show it, you play your strengths. If, though, to flip it, he is genuinely just there, and he's just there to make up the numbers, why fucking bother playing him in the cup? If you've got no intention of looking at the game with balanced eyes, not biased eyes, with balanced eyes, and being able to say, I like what I see there, I am considering monitoring him closer now as competition for Joe Hart for that first team. That's a baby step I'm talking about, of course. But see, if that's not even in your realms of your thinking, and all you're thinking is just to get him minutes because I signed him, Joe Hart's number 1, then I'd be disappointed in that. Very disappointed in that. And, no one at this stage is saying Siegrist should be our number 1 goalkeeper or anything like that. But when he gets these windows of opportunity, Jonathan, it's very important that both the player and the manager look at it as a chance for him to stake a claim for the number 1 jersey, not virtue signalling bullshit. That's what I don't want. And the thing is with Siegrist, the jury's very much out. I mean, he could be fucking far better than Hart. Who knows? As I say, football changes as the season goes on, Jonathan. I know I made a bold prediction in the summer. I just felt, if you look at how Joe Hart's viewed in the public, I mean, even down south now, compared to where he was, he's not rated particularly highly, Jonathan, as a goalkeeper.
No.
I think he's done well for us. Very well for us, in fact. I think he's brought more to the table off the park than he has intentionally on. There's been moments of brilliant saves, but you need to do that. Celtic don't sign good goalkeepers, Jonathan. They sign fucking brilliant goalkeepers. That's the thing. So, he's got to be held to the same standard, Jonathan, that we hold Artur Boric's, Fraser Forster's, That's the honest truth. And if that's the level we want, then, that's okay. I don't mind that. And it's nothing personal at Joe Hart. Siegrist comes in midweek for me as well. I agree. But let's cut all the virtue signalling bullshit out. He's got to be there and being judged on fair terms, Jonathan. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I would agree with you. I think he's probably going to find it a little bit harder to get in that position, just purely because a goalkeeper at Celtic, particularly domestically, might not have an awful lot to do in a lot of these games. For Park would certainly be an interesting one, because Motherwell could well give us a bit more of a game, and they can create chances against. I think we have looked a little bit suspect at the back in recent weeks, and we can certainly be got at. So Siegrist might well be called upon to make a few saves in the game. But I always think for a sub goalkeeper at Celtic to get the number 1 spot, they're almost having to wait on the number 1 making the mistake, because as I say, in most games domestically, Celtic dominate, and the goalkeeper has very little to do. But I mean, you're looking at it with Joe Hart, and I think there is telling signs that Ange Postecoglou will perhaps look at changing the goalkeeper somewhere along the line this season permanently. And I think one of the most obvious signs of that has actually been when Cal McGregor's been out injured. I think everyone thought Joe Hart would be the vice captain, and that's not happened at all. He's not been there. I don't think he's had the captain's armband at all this season, Joe Hart. But I think he did have a point last season when Callum McGregor was out, and I think that's already a slight shift towards the fact that Postecoglou possibly doesn't see Joe Hart as his long-term option in goals anymore. I'd certainly like to see Siegrist play on Wednesday. I think he will play on Wednesday. I think he's got a very good opportunity there, as you say, to really put himself in the window and give Ange a bit more of a selection headache for the weekend. And, you know, particularly, as I say, if the game's close and Siegrist has a big moment that helps us win the match, then again, I think that does beg the question that he could end up starting at 10 cups. I don't think anyone's position in this team should really be safe, bar, you know, a couple of positions which just seem, should.
No one's position should be safe.
Yes, however,
no
that's
one's position should be safe.
No one's position should be safe. However, we have seen this season that sometimes certain players seem to get more opportunities than others when it comes to the amount of chances with them not playing well. Whereas, if somebody else comes in and doesn't do a job, then they don't get another opportunity. But, if Kyogo, for example, is off the ball and has for a few weeks, he'll still be the number one striker. And then, Giacomakis, even when he's scoring, isn't getting really much of an opportunity. So there is potential there that Ange wouldn't, back Siegrist, even if he did turn out a really solid performance against Motherwell. He might still go and put him back on the bench. I think he probably would against Hearts. I think if we're looking at Siegrist coming in, I think it'll probably be a bit further down the line. He might well look at it and think, you know what, if we could actually win a cup with Siegrist in goals, that could be the shot in the arm. Because then Siegrist has got that experience of winning trophies, because he won't have that, I don't think, in his career.
Siegrist is raging the League Cup's back to being in March, the final, eh?
I know, he's thinking, fuck's sake, why is this not in November? I could have been in for the next Rangers game, but then I'm going to have to wait till bloody March. Probably only be one derby left time I get a chance to actually stake a claim for a first-team spot.
I do agree with you, though, Jonathan. I mean, I think the argument for Siegrist is definitely there. See, at the end of the day, there's been one player in our lifetime, Jonathan, that has been a guaranteed starter. And if you could convince this man, sound that klaxon, hey! If Martin O'Neill,
43 minutes.
a proper manager, of strong mental fortitude, Jonathan, if he had to, sort of succumb to the fact Henrik plays every game. Henrik's the only one in our lifetime, Jonathan, that was guaranteed. Yeah. He plays it, and he does it. If he wants to play, he plays, right? It's that simple. He's the only one in our lifetime. There's none of these guys in this team are anywhere close or should be close to be of a level where they get to, they're getting preferential treatment or whatever. And I think the jury should always be out, Jonathan, when you've got a group of players that have good competition, don't have favourites, don't have favourites. I do think Cal Mack is probably entering into that territory, Jonathan, but of course, 6-1 without him at the weekend. Make it tough for him to get back in. That's what I'd be saying to the players. Yeah. Who cares if he's captain or he wears a mask? Who cares? I don't give a shit about any of that. Go out and play your game. If you do well, you'll stay out the team. Just one of those things.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's one of those ones. I think McGregor is probably one of the only players you could turn around and say is guaranteed a start when he's fit, and I think that's been proven over the number of years in recent times because of how many games he's actually played, and the fact, going even all the way back to Rodgers' time at the club, Callum McGregor was probably the one who was never really rested at all. So I think, when he's back fit, you'd probably make a claim that he goes straight in, regardless. But I think you're right. There is definitely a lot of competition in the midfield, and you could probably make an argument Celtic could get by without him if their other midfielders are fully fit, because there was nothing wrong with the midfield three on Saturday, and there's certainly a lot of quality in that area of the park. I think the other one you're probably looking at is somebody that we have missed was Carter Vickers. I think when he was out, I think he's almost indispensable in the back line. But outside of those two, I don't think there's many players you would turn around and say you couldn't change around and
The
still get a
argument
similar
remains
quality.
the same, though. The argument
It
remains the
does.
same. Like, fucking do well and you'll get your jersey. I think the difference I'm trying to say is Martin could look at the other strikers and go, do well and you're not getting his jersey. It doesn't matter. It didn't matter. John Hartson could come in and score 4 goals. Sutton score 4 goals. He could beat a team 8-0 and they were our 2 strikers. O'Neill had to find a way to accommodate then Henrik in the team, but it didn't mean they were ever getting his jersey. No one at Celtic is of that right. No one at this moment in time, and nor should they be. Jonathan, speaking of the dressing room, speaking of Ange Postecoglou's picks and these non-picks, we've seen some dressing room footage of late, and it's obviously came from the most recent season review DVD. Phil McGinley said in the group chat, he's a bit like, how is it not like I don't even know what he's talking about, to be honest, but a Blu-ray thing, mate? I thought that just was what a DVD was. But he says it's not even Blu-ray format. Not quite sure what that means. But a digital download as well? That's madness. When you think about it, I mean, I rented the film off the Sky Store last night, Jonathan, my wee TV guy.
Yeah.
So I wanted to watch it. Just push a button, download it. Celtic should have that by now. I mean, like, you want to make money.
It's
you want to make money,
certainly
physical
not
format.
I don't know how many people go and buy DVDs as much anymore.
You don't got a DVD player. You don't have DVD players sitting underneath your telly or that now. Well,
use them as games. You'll use your games consoles or whatever as something. You have to get a double up, but then again, not everyone has one of them either. So it's very much a case. It's very backdated way of doing things. I mean, how many times can you say over the last couple of years if you went into HMV and thought, you know what, I'll go buy a couple of DVDs, that'll be bra. You can just get them all on Netflix or Amazon Prime or whatever video streaming site you choose to use, but it doesn't seem like Celtic.
That takes us nicely though onto it, Jonathan. It's a nice segue, mate, because what next for Celtic? I mean, they can't carry on with the DVD thing, right? Obviously, they might do it again next year, but if we're thinking long term, and we're always told to think long term when it comes to the team and that, Jonathan, so think long term with this sort of issue. If Celtic are not going to go down the road of the Celtic app, which I've tried to base in my mind on what the WWE app is like, I think that is a no-brainer, where these things can be uploaded to. You get them as complimentary content, Jonathan, because you pay your $5.99, your $9.99, whatever it may be, monthly subscription. And then when new releases like the season review comes out, people have first choice access to that because they are £120 a year subscribers, or whatever the fee may be is irrelevant. If they aren't going to have the foresight to do that, Jonathan, using that word again, then there's other options they could go down. Now, when you think about that All or Nothing series on Amazon Prime, for example, that is not something I think there's a much of an appetite from Celtic, because we think we're purer than that, Jonathan. Celtic won't do that, and we'll never sell the naming rights. Well, if Celtic are going to do silly things like DVDs, they'll give you a complete insight with full camera crews, because there's 2 different angles, by the way, when you watch the clip from the match. There's more than one camera in the room, right? Which means a big guy, like, you know what I mean? Like the big camera, stuff like that, right? In the room. 2 different angles. That's already invaded the dressing room now anyway. It's doing it a DVD the most profitable way. It's going to piss off Ange just as much, whether it's Amazon Prime folk or Netflix people or whatever. I think there's an appetite, Jonathan, for that sort of content. I actually also happen to think the first example I remember of one of these that really captured my imagination was Sunderland Till I Die. Now, what it did was it took you to a football club that was in decline, but it gave you access to stuff you thought, fucking hell, it's almost, it's not relatable, right? But it's almost felt relatable. It felt like all those hours you've spent playing Football Manager, Championship Manager, or FIFA in manager mode, you felt you're getting a wee sort of behind the curtain sort of view of it. And then you're seeing the dressing room, you're thinking, bunch of scallywags, you know what I mean? But then you were getting the real fans' opinion and stuff like that, do you know what I mean? And you were looking at the average Joe. You're just like, the camera's just going into his flat, do you know what I mean? He's got his 2 kids, and this is his life. And I find myself warming to Sunderland as a football club on the basis of that. Now, I don't think they are a particular draw, Jonathan. Celtic in that sort of environment, fuck me, it goes nuts. It goes nuts. I mean, any English, American, I don't know, Spanish viewer that are watching it with subtitles, that are watching that just out of intrigue purpose, would finish a 10 episode series with Celtic shirts, wearing a Celtic shirt for the final episode. That simple. Is it something you would accept as a Celtic fan? Would you like us to do that? And bear in mind when I'm saying this, it's a bit of a loaded question, because if we're going to kind of do it anyway at moments and pick and choose moments to do it for our DVD, which won't sell particularly well and doesn't really bring in much revenue for the football club, Jonathan, why not do it on something that's going to bring in tons of revenue, but just with an outsourced, like worldwide global company such as an Amazon Prime or a Netflix?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's certainly an appetite there for something along those lines. I remember they've always done these sort of behind the scenes clips over the last few years. I remember when Rodgers was manager, they had a few clips of him in their end of season ones as well, of him doing the pep talks at Hampden before cup finals and things like that. So it's not anything overly new in terms of having the cameras in the dressing room for the DVD side of it. And it's more of a case of whether or not they'd want to. I always had a sneaky feeling they might have done something like that in the 10 in a row season, but obviously that ended up going completely sideways. But I think there'd have been a lot more camera access potentially being given, but thank fuck that never seen the light of day, because I don't think anyone wanted to see what was going on in the changing room that particular year, because it's probably nothing that anyone wants to write home about. Maybe it was giving a bit of an insight into where it all went wrong, but I think there is definitely an appetite there. I would certainly be interested in watching, Celtic, in a sort of all or nothing series. I think that would be captivating viewing. You could imagine
what about Chris's point then, Jonathan? Just to put you on the spot, because I know Phil is waiting in the wings for Sutton Death. Chris, brilliant to have you back in the bus, mate. I noticed you commenting loads recently, so keep that up, mate. I love it. And not always agreeing, which is good. That's actually healthy for the chat, so keep it up, mate. He says we would then though become a tourist club. No one wants that push. What does tourist club mean though, Jonathan, anymore? Because they're all at it.
I mean, to play devil's advocate, you could argue Celtic are already becoming a bit more of a tourist club anyway. You look at the European side of things, and Celtic Park's almost like a theatre to come and watch, and a lot of tourists are now wanting to come and see and sample the Celtic atmosphere, and that's kind of grown arms and legs. And you see, in modern day now, you see a lot more of social media now taking over even the grounds, because people are now wanting to take pictures on their phones. It's a totally different environment from what it is, and that's kind of touristy. As well, when you're taking pictures and filming when you're actually at the stadium. Now, granted, I would accept Celtic are not at the same level as the English Premiership club with their half and half scarves for like a Man United Liverpool game, and thank goodness for that.
We're not at that. Still a bit fucking cozy for my liking, Jonathan. Do you know what I mean? And that's why I take Chris's point, though. He doesn't want us to go down that road, but again, like I was saying earlier about opinions and things, could Celtic though fall behind though further, Chris, because they're digging their heels in on tradition and all this stuff, where football unfortunately is evolving all the time, and whilst we might not like it, the pure part of our souls like it, we might just need to start sacrificing some of that stuff and go, do you know what, let's roll with the punches here, because no one needs the revenue more than a club that is as big as Celtic, Jonathan, entering into competitions like the Champions League that don't have the benefits of the domestic cash these other leagues bring in, the domestic sponsorships these other leagues bring in. All we've got is far bigger fan bases than almost all these clubs, Jonathan. We've got the history. It's all there. But we also need to create our new one. And unfortunately, sometimes the way football is moving is not a direction I find particularly palatable. However, it's a direction it's going in nonetheless. Do you want to sit and be left behind, but with all your principles and morals? Or do you want to start moving with the times, accepting football is now business? Football is now business as much as it is sport. And with that in mind, we may need to just accept little give and take here, and maybe something like a Netflix and Amazon move might be far more beneficial than pissing off our team and our manager with cameras in there anyway, for a DVD that will not sell many copies, Jonathan, and will not bring in the expected revenue you would have if you'd signed an agreement with an Amazon Prime or a Netflix production company.
Yeah, and I think that it goes back to the whole thing about, being a big fish in a small pond, and you've got to be looking at ways to maximise your financial revenues, particularly, when all we ever hear when we're playing in the Champions League is that the financial gulf is too big by the pessimists in the Scottish media. You've got to be looking at ways to maximise your revenue, and something like an all or nothing series for Celtic is going to make money. It's absolutely going to make money. It'll be a very interesting watch, I feel, as well. I've actually quite enjoyed the ones that they've done on Amazon in particular. I've watched a few of them. Most recently, I think the Arsenal one. I've watched the Tottenham one as well, and they were all, they all offer really cool insights into how those clubs are running. You get to see a lot more about the manager's personalities.
And I think the modern fan wants that.
Yeah, and I think so. I think there is that sort of thirst to kind of see a little bit, as you say, behind the curtain, behind the scenes. And you can actually change your opinion quite a lot on a person based on what you see on those sort of things as well. It's a very interesting watch.
Which pisses me off because, unfortunately, Jonathan, my cynical side can't help but lead me up a path where I can't help but feel the players that are then on that camera at that given time are as acutely aware of how they are coming over then if they were to be part of a final edit of an episode as what they are genuine. That is my difficulty, Jonathan.
Well, that is one of those ones. Yeah, happens, some people will always, so the cameras are on, so they're always going to be a bit more cautious about showing their true selves.
Faking it, or going the other way.
Correct. Anyway, there is that dilemma.
It's a debate we could go on with. Again, I just think it highlights the point. You only need to look at the numbers the wee snippets are getting right now, Jonathan, on Twitter. There is an appetite for this from fans. It is pulling emotion at fans. And yet a lot of the people that will be RTing these wee clips, talking them up, find them really sort of interesting and emotionally grabbing, that won't actually buy the DVD because they don't have a DVD player. So we need to move the times a wee bit. I just think it's one to throw out there in a era where football clubs have much access to revenue streams that we don't have. I think one that we could destroy the market in would be a Celtic All or Nothing or a Netflix version of Sunderland Till I Die. I think Celtic has unique selling points in these sort of films that would really grab a global audience. And I think that is the way forward. If you're going to stick two cameras in Angie's dressing room when he is talking emotionally about a title win that no one's seen coming, then you've pissed him off already. So do it and make it worth his time by being able to then reinvest the money and go, and this will be worth it in the long term, big boy. You know what I mean? And then once the millions come raking in, hand that back to him.
It might well work for Ange as well in some ways, Russell, because it gives him more spotlight too, because he is still a relatively...
He would like that.
He's obviously idolised now by the Celtic support, but, in terms of, a wider fan base, particularly, down south or whatever, then he could certainly get a bit more of a reputation if people are able to see his methods up close and personal. I think Ange Postecoglou, I'm not entirely sure he'd have a massive issue with it, because I think that would stroke his ego ever so slightly, and nothing wrong with that at all. So I think from his point of view, I think he wouldn't have as big a problem with it as some other managers might well have had in the past when these have been done. So it would certainly be an interesting one. I'd like to see Celtic explore the option. I feel Celtic probably will stick to their tried and tested DVDs for the foreseeable future, and will probably be reluctant to do something like that. It's just the way that things are done. I don't think Celtic will take a big risk on something like that in case they end up doing their all or nothing season, and it ends up being like Lenny's last season, and it ends up being like a 10-in-a-row season where everything goes tits up and everything that could go wrong does go wrong, because then they aren't going to want to release the actual footage of it.
It gives them something to blame it on, though, Jonathan. And these fickle football managers these days don't like to blame themselves. Anyway, we've had Phil McGinley waiting in the wings. It is after 10. I am conscious of the time. Jonathan, it is time for some Sutton Death. Welcome aboard the Boyce'S bus. Phil McGinley.
Yes, lads. Here we go again. How are you feeling, boys?
I'm good.
I'm needing a win. I'm needing a win this week. So I'm hoping you're going to pick something that's a bit more memorable than penalty misses this week.
Well, we shall see. We shall
That's
see.
fine.
Yeah, you definitely do need a win, Jonathan, because yes, if you missed it last week, folks, Russell took a 1-0 lead in the series, getting that first W under
My
his belt.
comments are turned off.
Yes, comments turned off, gentlemen. Of course, as part of the rules now.
Disappointed, by the way. Last week, people were suggesting I'd read the comments. I mean, like, give me peace. To beat Jonathan.
Did you see
I mean,
how
come
stressed
on.
out
He
Russell
never
was?
beats me at anything.
Freaking out. There's
Aye,
no
Jonathan-
way you're reading the comments. You were all over the place, mate.
And Jonathan knows he doesn't beat me at anything, mate. Apart from like FIFA or something, some modern game.
I'm just giving you a head start like usual, Russell. It's all going to come back and bite you on the arse. It's all going to come back and bite you on the arse.
Jonathan, it's never happened yet, mate. I'm convinced.
I think your older age is getting the better of you. Your memory is beginning to go, but we'll see.
Fight and talk here.
I am 25 in 3 weeks' time, Jonathan. 25 in 3 weeks' time.
There's that memory loss kicking in again.
Russell,
let's have it, Phil.
as you won last week, you get the choice. Do you wish to go first or second? I don't tell you the question until you've chosen, so I'm not giving you any hints.
First, man. I'm on right now.
First. Okay. So, unlike last week, there are only 12 available answers this time, so the margin for error will get very, very small very quickly here. I feel like the way this question is going to go is once you get the big obvious answers out the way, I can see a lot of scattergun guessing, but maybe I'm wrong. But anyway, the question tonight is...
Remind everyone the format as well, Phil, in case there's folk watching for the first time. Sorry.
So we treat it like a penalty shootout. The boys have got 5 shots each, so just like a penalty shoot, Russell will go first, then Jonathan, and so on and so on. Obviously, if somebody wins after the 5, then so be it. If not, then we'll keep going. We'll probably put a cap on it, so we'll be guessing here all night. And if we have to do a tiebreaker, I've got a tiebreaker question.
He's got all mods and cons. I love it.
I mean, Phil's definitely got no faith in us getting these questions right.
Last week there was 6 available answers, and between you get 6, was it, or 7, wasn't it, between you? So, yeah, say 12 tonight, guys, 12. Tonight's question is, everyone can always remember Celtic victories in cup finals. However, nobody ever really remembers the semi-finals, because to get to a final, you've got to win the semi-final first. Tonight's question is, can you name teams Celtic have beaten in any semi-final this century? So, Russell, you are up first, mate.
Rangers.
Yes.
Oh, very good, Russell. That was a really imaginative, really out of the box, that one. That was really imaginative.
Jonathan, it's your turn.
Hibs.
Yes, beat Hibs in 2017 and in 2019 in the League Cup.
Aberdeen.
Yes, indeed. We beat them in 2011 in both semi-finals in Scottish Cup and the League Cup. So Aberdeen, move them to... We've also beat them more recently in 2019 and in 2020. Okay, Jonathan.
Dundee United.
Oh, yeah. Dundee United, we've beat a lot. 2001, 2003, 2009, 2013. Yeah, I've had quite a lot against them.
Okay. Murrayfield. Did we play Hearts at Murrayfield?
I guess it's Hearts.
Yeah.
Hearts is indeed a correct answer.
Brian
We beat them in the 2005 Scottish Cup semi-final and the 2018 League Cup semi-final.
How many?
I'll give you one.
3 each.
Jonathan's going to, if he gets it here, he's going to make it 3 each.
I'm going to make it 3. I'm going to make it 3 each, and I'll do you one better. I'll tell you the season as well. 03-04, the Martin O'Neill era. Livingston.
Yes, Livingston 2004 Scottish Cup semi-final. Well done, Jonathan, mate. You have tied it at 3 apiece.
Struggling now, though.
I had a feeling this would happen.
No, is that the teams you expected us to get, is it?
Livingston was a bit of an obscure one because we've only played them in one semi-final. So I thought, they'll slip under the radar. But the other ones that you've got so far, yeah, are pretty obvious.
Semi-final.
Any semi-final this century.
Now, we were talking about a semi-final last week, I think. I don't particularly remember. I think it was Falkirk.
You're right, I think we did beat Falkirk.
Falkirk is a correct answer. 2012 we beat them, and then we lost to Kilmarnock in the League Cup final, but we beat
Top
Falkirk.
bins, I think that one was. Top bins, Jonathan, 4-3, son.
4-3
That was
Russell.
very, it was very,
And there
very
are
good.
5 answers left in the pool,
Very
Jonathan.
good
The margin for error is getting smaller.
It's getting smaller. I'm struggling to think of one because it's going to be one of these. There's more under Brendan.
Very good answer, mate.
It was a very good answer, Falkirk. Yeah, it was very good.
Just because of last week.
Let me think. Gotta chuck this one out there. I'm not entirely sure though. I'm not. I don't know.
Oh, he's struggling. He's rattled. How long does he get to take a penalty, Phil? Is he moved the ball about?
I'm gonna chuck in Motherwell.
Oh, he's threw a Hail Mary out there. And he's right. 2006, Gordon Strachan League Cup. We beat Motherwell in the semi-final. It is down to the last kick for the both of you here.
That's a real problem.
4 answers left in the pool, guys.
I don't like this answer.
Okay.
Oh, Kilmarnock.
That's what I was going to say. I think Kilmarnock have been there.
Is indeed a correct answer.
Yes!
Semi-final that we played this century. We went on to win the League Cup under Kenny Dalglish. Lubo Moravchik scored the only goal. Oh, Jonathan, mate. The pressure's on. The pressure is on, mate. There are 3 possible answers left.
Could I just say I changed my mind at the last minute there?
Have you got another one?
But no, I doubt it. That's why I changed my mind.
It's
tricky, isn't it? It's tricky.
It's not easy. It's not easy. I've got a few ideas for around. I can think the semi-finals we've lost to some teams, but I can't mind if we've beaten them or not either. I'm gonna chuck another one out there. I'm gonna have to chuck another one in. Yeah, I'm gonna guess St Mirren.
How confident are you with that answer, Jonathan?
About 20%.
I'll quantify it by saying that was my team that I was going to pick.
Well,
I changed my mind on St Mirren.
We did play St Johnstone in the
And
2013 League Cup semi-final. We lost that game, but did we play them again this century in a semi-final? We did not. Russell has won 5-4.
Oh my God.
But St Johnstone was a right answer. You were that close if you said St Johnstone. Do you want to know what the other 2 are? And I'm disappointed.
St Mirren, though. I was going to say.
I'm going to say Ross County or Inverness. I was thinking then, but they beat us in semis. I couldn't.
Ross County have beat us twice in semi-finals, and the only semi we played with Inverness this century we get beat. Now, the 3 answers left, St Johnstone was one of them. 2007 Scottish Cup, 2021 League Cup. But I'm really surprised neither of you got this because the question was any semi-final. Boa Vista.
Oh, of course, Boa Vista.
UEFA Cup semi-final 2003. I thought that would have been Martin O'Neill either. Boom, right there. Any semi-final.
Thinking domestic cup.
Never even thought of it. Never even crossed my mind.
And the other one you would have done really well, and I wouldn't have been shocked if you'd said Partick Thistle because the team were wearing yellow and red that day, but it was Ayr United 2002 Scottish Cup semi-final.
Ayr United was in my brain, though. That is true.
Yeah.
I promise you that. Ayr United, but I would have to say St Mirren, Jonathan, that you failed on, you hit the post with. I was a breath away from doing the same thing, and then I just went, nah, go with Kilmarnock. They've got more of a chance of being in there. That's mad. Hallelujah.
So 5-4 in that game there. Well done, Russell. There's now 2-0 up in the series, mate. Jonathan, man.
Yeah. Still early days, Phil. Still early days.
I know. Nothing's
telling you the score, Jonathan. You don't need to get defensive. He's only telling you the score. He's just saying 2-0.
I'm just letting him get a wee head start. We need to keep it competitive. I didn't want to run away with it too early.
Make it interesting.
Get in there, man. I'm buzzing with that, man. Absolutely buzzing. What a Monday club, though. It's been Phil. Thank you for jumping on it and doing that. As always, it is brilliant.
No worries.
A wee addition to the Monday club. It does jazz up the Monday club, Jonathan. It makes it all the worthwhile, doesn't it? Really, us talking pish for 50 minutes keeps them all in their seat because they know this is coming. The Sutton Death ending. A big thank you to everyone in the comments. It's been mobbed again tonight. Way over 100 viewers all night. I think we had over the course of the weekend something like 3,500 views or something. 4,000. No, more than that. About over 4,000 views. So, aye, amazing. Thank you to all yous for that because it means the absolute world to us. As we say, we are on the subscription hunt because the optics look better. Let's get it to 3,000. We are 97 away, Jonathan and Phil. So we're not far.
Wow.
Not far. We can be pretty proud of that. And we want to do it, obviously, before we hit the year anniversary, which will be the 6th of December. Big thanks to you two guys, as always. Anything else anyone wants to add before we go?
No, all good. All good. I'm in gobsmacked. I'm gobsmacked. I'm in shock.
5 out of 5 penalties home there, by the way. I wonder what Chris Sutton would make of that.
Some of his comments about me deliberately trying to cause controversy. Well, I work in the media now, and you've got someone sitting there next to you who's an embarrassment to the media profession. He's an apologist. He's a charlatan.